Welcome to Topper Talk, your number one Western Kentucky athletics podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Moffitt, and I'm joined by co-host Tyler Bailey. Hilltopper Nation, whether it's happening on the hill or on the road, grab those red towels, stand up and cheer, because it's up next on Topper Talk. Welcome back, and thank you for downloading and listening to another episode of Topper Talk Podcast. As always, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Topper_Talk, and slide on over to our YouTube channel. Give us a follow over there at Topper Talk Podcast. Check out those live videos. Check out our beautiful faces. This new overlay and backdrop that we have, man, it's beautiful. It's a really beautiful thing that we've got going and growing over there, and there's a lot of big stuff coming in the very near future. Share our episodes, tell a friend. Share the links with a WKU fan in your life. We're trying to spread the word and spread the episodes and content to as many people as possible. As always, I've got Tyler here with me. We are going to recap this heartbreaking loss that we had to Liberty. Tyler, man, you ready to jump in? We've got a big episode in front of us.
Yeah, we do. Sadly, we did lose it, but hey, that's why there's always next game next week. Let's go.
As always, this podcast is sponsored by the Fireman Moving Company. The Fireman Moving Company is the official moving company of WKU Athletics. Not only can they be trusted to move all the coaches in and out of Western, but they can move you anywhere nationwide. The Fireman Moving Company is owned and operated by the firemen and is founded by WKU alumni. If you are looking to move sometime soon, give them a call at 270-791-1755 and get yourself a free quote. And I'll keep saying it, not because they're paying me to do it, but because I really believe it. But the Fireman Moving Company is the best decision that you will ever make if you're deciding to move, if you have moving needs, big or small, near or far. Give them a call, get a free quote, because they will make your life just a lot easier for that moving process. They're fast, they're efficient, they're fairly priced, and they will just free you up to do other things in life. Just that's what they're all about, is making your life easier. They take the hassle out of the moving and get that done for you. Now, before we jump into the main segment and break down the Liberty game and how it unfolded, we're going to jump into the Red Towel wrap-up, which catches us up on all the WKU athletic events that have happened since our last recording. So, Tyler, hit us with that Red Towel wrap-up. What did we miss?
All right, so the ladies golf team participated in the Southern, hosted by Georgia Southern, where they finished second place overall. Katie Craig, she finished third. Sarah Arnold finished fourth. Addie Westbrook finished 29th. Sydney Hackett finished 33rd. And Avery Klein, she finished 38th. Softball, they played Volunteer State Community College, and we got the W. The men's Hilltopper Hysteria happened this past Thursday. Moff, you was there. I wasn't. Give us a little insight on what I missed.
Yeah, interesting event. Kind of changed things up this year. New coach, new program, kind of in theory, new staff, new team. Um, it really wasn't the greatest event, just being completely honest. It wasn't an event that gave you a big sneak peek at the players and what to expect from them. They had a skills challenge that it kind of incorporated both the men's and women. They had a 3-point shootout that Christian Lander ended up winning. He beat Dante and then went on to face one of the females and beat them in the final. And then they had a little kids dunk contest on a little tight goal, which was pretty neat. It was cute, but it wasn't just a normal scrimmage event where you got to see these guys in live 5-on-5, kind of real time basketball, and kind of get a feel of all these new faces. So, while it was a fun event, it was nice to be back in Diddle. We got to see the cheer team perform, the dance team perform. Obviously, some of the men's and women, some of those new faces, see them introduced. The coaches got up there and talked, and got to see them interact with some young kids, and they had an autograph sessions afterward. But it wasn't the event that it was in years past, where you really got to have a feel for what this team may be as we move into the season, which is now, less than 2 weeks away before we have our first exhibition game. So good time. It was a fun, fun event. Me and my son attended it, but not really a lot to take away from what to expect of this basketball team.
Well, some questions got to be left unanswered till the first scrimmage, I guess, or exhibition. Uh, let's see. Ladies volleyball continuing their winning ways versus La Tech and swept them 3-0. The ladies soccer team, they played New Mexico State University on the 27th for senior night, and sadly they lost 1-0. On the 28th, the cross country Conference USA cross country championship was at Hobson Grove Park. The men's squad finished seventh in the 8K race. The women finished in eighth place in the 6K race. For the fifth time this season, freshmen led the way for both the men and the women. Jared Sanfoss led the men with a time of 25 minutes and 38 seconds, his personal best in the 8K race. Kenley Kunkel once again led the women with a time of 24 seconds and 24 minutes and 5 seconds. The duo have been the top finishers for each team in all 5 meets this season. 7 of the 8 men recorded their best time of the season. Junior Brad Wiggins ran his best race of the season, finished in 26 minutes, 19 seconds, good enough for second best team finish. Wade Balcom followed right behind him with his best time of the season. And then the ladies had a rematch at La Tech and swept them again 3-0. It's cute that La Tech thinks they can, keep up with us in volleyball, but it just ain't going to work out this season or probably for the foreseeable future. So that wraps up the Red Tower wrap up. Moff, back to you.
Yeah, the soccer, senior night hosted New Mexico State. Conference title was on the line. Ultimately, New Mexico State prevailed in that game 1-0, like you said. I'm sure it was kind of a bittersweet end for that group of seniors that we had. But obviously, there's a conference tournament championship to come for them, and trying to advance to the NCAA's. And then volleyball wise, I mean, we played La Tech and just literally dominated them in both games that we played them Friday and Saturday. I mean, they barely got into double digits in any set. And then the cross country Conference USA championships being hosted here in Bowling Green was pretty cool. Not cool that Middle Tennessee won the men's and women's division, but if they want to brag that they're a cross country and tennis team program, I mean that's what they are. They're not winning in football or basketball or baseball or anything else of any relevance. They are a cross country and tennis school. That's what they are. That's the only thing they can win at. So congratulations to them. But really impressed with our team. We did have freshmen leading the way for both men's and women. So I think that bodes well for what future seasons may have as we continue to build those programs and try to get better in the following year. So I'm excited for that. Really good Red Town wrap up. A lot of sports going on. Obviously, again, that segment's only going to continue to grow, especially with basketball season, literally right around the corner. Really can't wait to dive into some of that content. Now, diving into the Liberty recap. We welcomed Liberty into Bowling Green, Kentucky this past Tuesday in front of an announced crowd of 16,036 people, and we fell in defeat by a score of 42-29. WKU has now dropped to 4-4 on the season, while Liberty improved to 8-0. And really, they're kind of on the cusp of potentially being a top 25 ranked team. I'm not sure they're going to get there this week. Just looking at other teams in top 25 that won and lost, they need some help to kind of sneak into that top 25. But they're right there on that cusp. They're 8-0. They've done everything they can. You can talk about their strength of schedule, who they've had to play, but they've beaten everyone in front of them. They've been the best team in Conference USA before we faced off. And ultimately, they won this game. Now, the game was preceded by the Jordan Davis concert on the South Lawn that had been announced several months ago. There was a really nice big showing of WKU fans, a lot of students, a lot of good tailgating there on South Lawn. The weather was perfect. It wasn't cold. It wasn't rainy. It wasn't hot at all. It's just literally a perfect football afternoon. And Hunter Lee gave us that weather prediction and forecast as we did the preview for the Liberty game, and it turned out just exactly what he said. Just 70 degrees, 65 by the end of the game. So just perfect tailgating weather. And the pregame atmosphere was just pretty awesome. Obviously me and you, Tyler, we got to link up before the game. I guess give me your thoughts and just how the game and atmosphere and campus was leading up to kickoff. What did it look like to you?
Well, yeah, it was really nice to see a large number of people show up for a Tuesday night game because, you just wouldn't imagine it for, I guess, any college at all. But no, it was really good. Jordan Davis, it was a good concert. It's not my type of country music, but it's always fun to listen to someone get up there and sing on stage. Um, One thing I noticed was after the concert, a lot of people was walking out to the parking lot. Though a lot of people was leaving, not going to the game. If you come to the concert, you might as well just show up to the game as well. Just, support your team.
Yeah, it's always tough to usher those people into the stadium. I wish we could corral them in and force them into the stadium somehow, but just ultimately that didn't happen. Now, pregame, after you and I met up, and I headed down to the concert, I did get to meet up with some Liberty fans, including one super fan and a member of the Fan the Flames podcast that did the preview episode with us, Jeremiah Flinchum. Got to meet up with him and a couple of his friends from the Sea of Red Twitter account and podcast. It was really nice to meet with them, put a face to the names and the Twitter handles and, shake their hands, thank them for coming to campus, making the trip. We got to talk about football. We got to talk about, what they have seen in the city and on campus. And even the pregame concert, they're really envious. Like, man, that was a great event. Um, that they wish that Liberty would do something similar to that, just to bring that pregame atmosphere and environment to their campus. So, but it was nice meeting up with them, getting to meet them, during the game, before the game, and then ultimately, we hung out with them at the end of the game as well. So, the Liberty team, the Liberty guys, all the fans and everybody that we had met, even just on Twitter before the game, and then pregame at the concert, and even during the game, all the Liberty fans have just been just amazing. Very cordial people, very nice, good conversation. Just literally not one bad interaction. So I'm really excited for what Liberty is bringing to Conference USA. Not only from an athletic standpoint, the competitive nature of what we expect their teams to be, but what they're bringing from a fan base and support and just engagement. There's just a ton of engagement from them on social media, and then they traveled really, really, really well. Quite frankly, they probably traveled better than any other team we've had. To Houchins Stadium this year, including Middle Tennessee, who's 45 minutes an hour, hour and a half away with 100 miles of hate. I mean, that's a close trip. Liberty's 6+ hours, and they easily out travel them. I think that tells you more about Middle having no fans at all. But nice to see Liberty show up, show out. They got a tough win. Once the game started, both teams kind of started red hot. Western got the ball first. We went down and scored. Liberty did the same. They got the ball right back, went down and scored. It looked like this was going to be a shootout. 7-7 really early in the first quarter. But then the defenses of both teams showed up, started making plays. Everybody kind of settled down. Late in the second quarter, WKU narrowly missed on an Easton Messer toe drag touchdown that I'm still not convinced when I saw the in-stadium replay. And even as I had friends that were watching, at home on TV, I'm not convinced that wasn't a touchdown. But it wasn't called a touchdown. They reviewed it. Didn't overturn the play. They caught him out of bounds. They didn't overturn that. There wasn't sufficient evidence. We ended up settling for a field goal attempt with Lucas Canario, and he missed that field goal. So the perfect season, the bold prediction that was good through 7+ games has now ended, but that's okay. we went into halftime trailing Liberty 14-10. Then Liberty would score the only points of the third quarter with a touchdown to make it 21-10. Now WKU we had several possessions in that third quarter where it felt like we needed to score. We need to go down and put points on the board, or we were on the verge of just getting blown out. Quite frankly, it was 14-10, then 21-10. We obviously need to put points on the board, but we could not put a drive together and sustain a drive and put points on the board. And then the fourth quarter, was kind of an offensive revelation. Both teams scored 3 touchdowns, including WKU having a couple of wide open touchdowns on back-to-back drives to Elijah Young. And then our boy, River Helms, defensively, we couldn't make a stop. Kind of the whole stadium, the team, the coaches, everybody knew that Liberty was going to run the ball. Every I think they only threw the ball something like 16 attempts on the game. They had 30 plus rushing attempts, probably closer to 40. They were lined up, they were running the ball, where it was the quarterback handing off to a running back, whoever it was, and we couldn't stop them. And that's what the game ultimately boiled down to. Their offensive line, their rushing attack, they were just extremely productive. There was no answer at all for them. And especially as the game wore on, it just became more and more evident that they were imposing their will on our defensive line and just doing what they want to do. And ultimately, they got the well-deserved win, 42-39, like we stated earlier. Now, offensively, WKU was led by quarterback Austin Reed. He finished the game 30 out of 44 for 365 yards with 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. So a more Austin Reed-esque game, 65+% completion percentage, 3 Bills yards, 4-to-1 touchdown ratio. I mean, that's a more typical Austin Reed game that we hadn't seen in a while this season. So it was good to see that. Our leading rusher was Elijah Young. He had 8 carries for 61 yards. That was a 7.6 yard per carry average. And Marquis Stepp also had 4 carries for 29 yards, a 7.3 yard per carry average. Overall, the team had 22 carries for 119 yards and averaged 5.4 yards per carry. Now, our leading wide receivers were Dalvin Smith with 8 catches for 79 yards. My boy River Helms with 3 catches for 76 yards, including that long touchdown. Malachi Corley had 6 catches for 62 yards with 2 touchdowns. And then Elijah Young had 4 catches for 58 yards and that 1 long touchdown late in the game. So, Tyler, tough game. Obviously, offensively, we didn't score enough points to win the game. But what were your thoughts overall with this WKU offense and how we finally showed out? We had a good second half. But, overall, how did the offense look to you?
Well, the offense didn't. To me, we got yardage. Our total yards was 484, which is only 8 less than what Liberty had. So you had 2 high-powered offense going head-to-head. Sadly, we just couldn't get the points. It was good to see Dalvin Smith back out there on the field, getting passes and getting yards. Easton Messer, he had 3 catches for 36 yards. Davion Irvin Poindexter, he had 2 catches for 30 yards and 6 rushes for 23 yards. Katie Hutchinson, he had 1 catch for 11 yards, and you already mentioned Marquis Stepp. I just wish we had more points, man. That toe drag, that was a bummer. Then me and you there in the fourth quarter, we saw some of them holding penalties that were not called. I'm happy with the offense that was out there on the field. I just wish we could have had more points.
Yeah, it really turned out to, who could sustain drives the longest, and that rushing attack of Liberty, wore us down. And offensively, I think we had a good game, a game that would have beat a lot of teams in Conference USA with the yards we had. Obviously, we'd like to see more points, but I think it was a better showing than what we had seen the last several weeks for sure. Now, defensively, WKU was led by Sebastian Benjamin, who had 8 tackles, including 1 sack and 1 tackle for loss. Also, our boy Nante Davis had 7 tackles, including 5 solo. Now, the defense did not create any turnovers in this game, which had kind of been their strong suit. And I think that was what a key to victory for both of us was to win that turnover battle. We didn't create any turnovers. We did have one turnover. We gave up 492 yards of offense to Liberty, with 323 yards of those being rushing yards. So, Tyler, what was your thoughts overall on this WKU defense and how they fared versus this Liberty attack?
Well, they didn't fare too good. I was sitting there with you in the second half, and I was yelling out, "They're running it up the middle." Um, Liberty's leading rusher was their quarterback, and he had 117 yards. It just seemed like every time they snapped the ball, handoff, and they always get away. If we would bring pressure to if we would get pressure at the QB, it seems like he would always outrun our guys. I've seen that a few times, and then he just kind of scamper out of bounds and just move the chains. But I mean, if they was getting on first down like 4 yards, 5 yards on first down, then second down they was pretty much getting over there. And then I think they went on fourth down just like once or three times. I mean, if they're getting that many yardage on first, second, and third, I mean, why not? Because they know they can do what they want to. Um, it just ain't. Gosh, it's deep. How many yards we gave up? 492 yards. It's not good. You know, uh, there's not many teams you're gonna beat if you give up that many yards. Um, Now, if our offense may have been able to sustain them points or get them points, finish them drives, then yeah, we probably would have came out on top. But this defense, it just hurt seeing them gash us like they did. Hosea Wheeler, he had 4 total tackles, two solos. Talik Allen had 5 total tackles, 3 solos. Desmond Baker had 6 total tackles, 2 solos. Takulve Williams had 4 total tackles and 3 solos. I mean, and I mentioned their quarterback was their leading rusher. He had 117 yards on 13 carries. That's all he had was 13 carries, and he was able to get 117 yards. How? I figured, and I'll talk about this later whenever we get into grades, but you figured that our defensive coordinator, somebody over there, would be making adjustments to that. And we just didn't see that in this game.
Yeah, I think defensively, what we saw was really a culmination of a couple of factors and variables. One, we know this defense was really young coming into the season, really inexperienced, replacing 7 starters at the beginning of the season. Now, 7 plus, now 8 games into the season, we're missing starting defenders at every level of the defense. We're missing a defensive lineman in Jacquez Evans. We're missing a cornerback in Upton Stout. We're missing a safety in Rome Weber, including other guys as well. 3 players, a couple of those, preseason All CUSA guys. Those guys definitely would have made an impact, obviously, if they were playing in this game. I'm not saying they would have been the difference in winning or losing. But we know that this team is really young defensively. We're really injured defensively and just trying to, really be a bend, don't break sort of defense. But this Liberty offense and this rushing attack, there's no other way to put it than they imposed their will. Like you said, we knew they were lining up. We knew they were going to rush the ball. We couldn't stop them. That's what it boiled down to in this game. Now, special teams wise, our boy Tom Ellard came in the game. He only had 3 punts. For some reason, I was thinking he had more than 3 punts, but he had 3 punts on the game for 136 yards, a 45.3-yard average, with 2 of those being inside the 20. Lucas Canario was 1 out of 2 on field goals. Broke that perfect season streak, which is okay. I'll give him one. I'll give him one on the season. But that's it. You got at least 4, probably 5 more games on the year. I'm gonna need him to pick that up. But overall, pretty decent day with the special teams. Now let's get into key indicators before we do our grades. Liberty outgained WKU just barely by 8 yards, like you said earlier. 492 yards for Liberty, 484 for WKU. Liberty had 27 total first downs. WKU had 24. On third downs, Liberty was 2 out of 9, which is not good. But then you look at what they did on third down. They were 3 out of 3 on third down. So basically 5 out of 9 on those third, fourth down attempts. They were perfect on fourth down. They just kept positioning themselves to those 4th and 1, 4th and 2 situations. And again, that was another one of my keys to victory was win those first and second down plays and put them in third and longs. Because if they get to third and or fourth and short, they're going to go for it. And they did, and they converted on every single one. WKU was 8 out of 14 on third down. We were 1 out of 1 on fourth down. And then Liberty had 0 turnovers in the game. WKU had 1, which was an Austin Reed interception. A long pass to the deep corner of the end zone that was picked off. Time of possession wise, Liberty had the ball for 33 minutes and 7 seconds. WKU had the ball for 26 minutes and 53 seconds. Which really highlights just the fact that running, that ground attack that they had was just grinding out the game. They were keeping the ball in their possession. Had longer drives enough, just kept the ball out of our offensive hand, which, had a good game. We'll give that to them. And just ultimately, won the game. They basically had a clean sweep in the key indicators for the game. So now let's jump into our grades for this game. Tyler, what do you give the offense for the game versus Liberty?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, I had 8 less total yards. We couldn't cash in on the drives, but we finally broke the second half slump that we were dealing with without scoring. It was a good offensive game, but we just couldn't score. I'm going to give him a C.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to give him a B minus. I think as we were watching the game, it felt like we left points on the board, including that missed field goal. Just we could have done more. Offensively, I think we had a better game plan. We, early on in the game, we were actually rushing the ball pretty well. It seemed like they were only having, 3 down linemen. We're dropping, 7, 8 guys, and it felt like daring us to run the ball. And it felt like we were running the ball pretty successfully. When we talked about what Elijah Young and Marquis Stepp did, they both averaged over 7 yards per carry. So, we had a good offensive game plan, but that shifted when we got down early, when we were down 14-10 at half, and then 21-10. Then we kind of became one-dimensional, where we were just a pass-off happy offense. What you expect when you're down by double-digit, 2 scores. You have to throw the ball. You have to move the ball down the field quickly and try to score points. And ultimately that kind of dictated the flow of the game. But I think the offense was much better this game. Still some opportunities play calling wise, which, a couple of times maybe you scratch your head on what we were doing and why we were doing, especially on the one interception. We took back-to-back shots down to the back corner of that end zone, and the second one got intercepted. It felt like we could have chopped up the middle of the field, advanced the ball a little bit more rather than being over-aggressive. Kind of felt like we went from being conservative to being over-aggressive and not finding that middle ground to advance the ball, potentially score points, at least a field goal, or continue to drive to score points later on. But I'm right there with you. You give him a C, I give him a B minus. What about defensively against Liberty? What do you give us?
Liberty did rush for 323 yards, and they ran through us like a hot knife through butter. We couldn't contain it. We couldn't slow it down. No sacks, no turnovers, like you said. So I'm going to give them a C minus. Um, I feel like I'm maybe a little bit too critical on them, but I mean, come on, man.
We had one sack. No turnover. We did have one sack. I think
I'm
it was
sorry. I apologize.
yeah, I think it was Sebastian Benjamin. I think he had to sack. But I think that was our only sack of the game. They were elusive. Caden Salter was a really solid quarterback. And again, their rushing game was very effective, very productive. So I'm right there with you. I'm going to give them a D for defense. It wasn't an average output, which would what a C would be. Average, probably would have had us closer in contention to win this game. But that was a really good Liberty offense and game plan and execution that we played against. And they just continually gashed us. It was, man versus man, 11 versus 11. And they lined up and were just running the ball down our throats. There's no other way to put that. They did what they wanted to do, and it led them to victory. So, um, tough grade for the defense, but they gave up the yards, they gave up the points, and it is what it is. What about special teams? What you got for them?
Tom Eller doing what Tom Eller does, flipping the field, coming out there 3 times. Like I said, 2 within 20. He had 1 touchback. Canario, sadly, you know, went 50% on the night. I'm gonna give him a B plus because of the missed field goal.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, obviously the missed field goal is less than ideal. It wasn't uh, something that decided this game. When you lose by 13, the field goal didn't win or lose this game, but just that momentum. Again, it was another key to victory. Getting all the points you can get, sustaining drives. We need to get every point we can get. When you miss the field goal, you left points off the board. Um, but Tom Eller did his thing. 45.3 yard average. 2 of his 3 punts were inside the 20. The other was a touchback. So, really good game for him. Again, special teams kind of did what they do. They've probably been the most consistent unit this year, which I don't know what that really says for offensive defense, but they've been consistent this year. So I'm right there with you. I'm gonna give them a B. What about the coaching grade versus Liberty?
All right. So coaches, like I mentioned earlier, they didn't make really no adjustments on defense. Sometimes you just got to stack the box and just try to stop the run game. Um, Offensively, I feel like the play calling up until the fourth quarter was kind of vanilla, and then you had them 2 back-to-back wheel routes that resulted in touchdowns. And I feel like the play calling may have been more aggressive. Well, it was more aggressive in the fourth quarter. Um, but by then, it was already, kind of too late. Um, I'm torn between a C minus I'm gonna go C minus on coaching grade.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I'm kind of averaging out. Offensively, I think we had a pretty good game. Defensively, not our best effort. You give up almost 500 yards and 42 points. You lose the ball game. I mean, it just kind of is what it is. I'm going to average it out to a C. Again, I think it was a really good game, a really competitive game. I think Liberty is a really good football team, regardless of the schedule they play this year, strength of schedule. They are a good team. They've beaten every team in front of them, which obviously we would love to say the same and have an 8-0 season in front of us. So they're a good football team, coaching wise. There were decisions in the game that were head scratchers, play calling and mixture, etc. Definitely that fourth quarter felt more open. It felt like, where's this been all game? We're throwing the ball down the field, create more plays in space. It was nice to see, and I hope that's something we can build on as we go into the UTEP game and Sam Houston FIU to end this season. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm gonna give those guys a C. What about the fans and just the overall atmosphere, concert attendance, 16,000 plus? What do you give the fan grade this game?
Well, it seemed like the fans, I started noticing a lot of them were clearing out at the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter. At the beginning, it was great, especially on a Tuesday night. I'm so glad we're done with Tuesday, Thursday night football for the season. Um, I'm gonna go with I guess a B for the fans. It'd been nice to have a larger crowd, but considering the night it was on, not a normal football night, you got to go up and you got to wake up and get to work on Wednesday. Uh, People probably couldn't make it with their kids and all that stuff and after school activities. So I'm gonna give them a B. I feel like.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, the fans, the pregame concert was great. Good turnout, good student support, good tailgating, nice atmosphere. Um, just overall, the pregame was great. In the stadium, the berm was nice and full until halftime. The stands, the new side and the old side looked pretty good. The 16K announced was about on target for what I would have guessed the capacity to be. But like you said, it did clear out very heavily after halftime. To the point where by the end of the fourth quarter, when we moved down to the Liberty section, we're hanging out with Jeremiah and those guys will see a red down there, who were surprised to see us back. By the way, which I will never shy away from taking an L at a ball game. But I loved hanging out with those guys. But our fans did clear out. It got to the point where it felt like the Liberty crowd outnumbered us there at the end, which is sad to say. But when you're losing a ball game, it looks pretty decisive. It clears out. Obviously, the away team's going to hang out. So I'm right there with you. I think the fans going to be overall is a good fun game. Um, Hate to take the loss, but at this point, we're now in the position where if we want to make the conference championship game, which Liberty has now clinched a spot in the conference championship game because of the way their schedule falls. They've already played 6 conference games, whereas most of us have only played 4. They have clinched a spot in the championship game, regardless of how the rest of their season plays out with only 2 more conference games to play. We're now, kind of in playoff mode at Western. We theoretically, without help from other teams, we almost have to win out the rest of our games to secure a rematch with them in what ultimately will be a game at Liberty. So it's really going to be a tough position to be in, offensively and defensively. We've got things to correct and get better, and hopefully there are some players that get healthy and can return to the team and help us be better as the season comes to an end. But I'll say again, it was really great to meet up with some of those Liberty guys. Talk to them before they came to uh, Bowling Green, and as they were on in the city and on campus, just kind of pointing them around where to go, where to be, meeting up with them pregame, during the game, as the clock was ticking down to 0. It was really fun hanging out with you and them, and just chatting football. I mean, it's there was no hard feelings and us taking that loss. It was cool hanging out with them, getting to watch them celebrate that victory. I know in the future that at least I'll, hopefully will get to make that trip over there to their campus and see their city, their university, their facilities and football stadium, and just kind of take in that environment as a visitor, which is always a unique and special experience. And kind of as the game was getting started, and I was there with my family for the first half before they left. When the Liberty fans were there, I was really bouncing all over the place. I was talking to every Liberty fan I was close to, just saying, "Hey, thanks for coming. I hope you have a great time." And just everybody was just super nice. Had a really good experience with everybody that I talked to. Still chatting with the guys online and through text that we were met up with during the game and at the game there. So just a really overall fun experience. Really nice to have a conference member that brings so much fan support to the conference. That's not something that's been a strong suit in Conference USA before the reshuffling. And now as we're in, Conference USA 3.0 or whatever you want to call it now, Liberty is going to be a solid addition across, all sports. They're going to be competitive. They're going to have good fan support, and I really like what they bring. I think they are kind of a budding rival. Obviously this is one of the first, in conference games we played with them in a major sport. So really looking forward to, how that develops and grows over the coming years. Obviously, football wise, we hate to drop to 4-4, 500 on the season. This was kind of the floor. When we did our preseason predictions and talked about what our ceiling was for the team. I think mine was 11-1. I think my floor was 8-4, which is, we're at 4-4 now, so we'd have to win out to hit that 8-4. So, um, my worst case scenario was we could lose Ohio State, Troy. I didn't see Jacksonville State, but Liberty could be a loss. So, 4 losses was kind of my floor of how bad this season could be. So, we've got some things to clean up, get better, right the ship. Big game coming up. Luckily, there's a 12-day layoff between that Tuesday game and next Saturday before we play again. So, I still do have trust in Coach Helton and his staff to, develop, continue to get better with the game planning and the players that we have, and hopefully people getting healthy and show up and beat UTEP, because that's, what's next on the radar. That's the next team that we're playing. So, that's all I've got. I really enjoyed the Liberty game. Obviously, I hate losing, but it has now settled and digested for what is 5 days now. So on to the next one. Let's go beat UTEP. Tyler, give us your final words and let's get the heck out of here.
You're right. It was nice meeting Jeremiah and a bunch of them other Liberty fans. I do hope that is the last time I hear the chant LU in Pouch or in the future Diddle for a good long while. Whenever they come back, I hope we just beat them so bad we don't have to hear that chant, because that would make my night or my day. But no, it was a good game. But let's close chapter on it. Move on to UTEP. I mean, it's basically another bye week. 12 days before we get to play them. Let's go down there, take care of business. This is I do have to give a little shout out to KD from Thundercast. You know how the Western thing is: tops win, you win. Marshall loses, I win. Tonight, bet money that Coastal Carolina would stomp them. It happened. So
you literally won.
Yeah, I literally won. So suck it, Marshall. But no, I'm ready for basketball season's coming up. That's going to be. It's always an entertaining time or exciting time, especially now with a new coach, basically new team. Hopefully, we can run the conference there and get back to hopefully to the NCAA tournament. I don't like what the NIT did. Screw them. But that's for another podcast in a later date. But I just wish we could have finished more points at during the Liberty game. We had with 3 punts, 1 interception, and 1 missed field goal. You maybe shave off 2 of them punts, and missed field goal, and probably been a different game. But like I said earlier, let's close the book on it, move on. Beat them Miners from UTEP. So with that, I will say, Moff, who has it better than us?
Nobody, Tyler. You already know.
Nobody.
Go Tops,
Especially
guys.
not Liberty.
Especially not Liberty and not Marshall.
Definitely not Marshall. Them boys.
Woof. Go Tops.
Woof. Go Tops, y'all.
Later, guys.
See you.